So my story begins when I was doing my master's in English literature a few years ago. And at one point, I felt quite ill. I felt my body was swollen, trembling. I felt I couldn't sleep. I just felt like my body was suddenly not fulfilling its task as like I was used to it. So I was really concerned about it. So I made an appointment with the GP, and it was quite new for me to navigate the NHS system. So finally I got through it. I saw the doctor, I got a few medical checkups, and I was told that I was fine. And I was really disappointed. I was like, I didn't feel fine. I feel like suddenly this monstrous body was in front of me. I was never thinking about the complexities, the kind of, I don't know, the kind of things I didn't experience before. So I wanted an account of it, which I was not able to get. And another story is about my friend. So as he was growing up, he has an older brother who is a doctor, and the brother just randomly said my friend has got Asperger's syndrome, and he really didn't like it. So throughout his youth, he was trying to get away from the label. So he went to support groups, he went to see some specialists, he did some online questionnaires just to get away from the label, you know. And the other day I was talking about this story with a friend of mine, and he was like, actually, I think I might have Asperger's. It would make sense. So he digs through some old school reports from primary school that he had. So he had some bad comments from the teacher about how unsociable he was. And he was like, I think I might have it back then or even now. And he thought if he can have the label, it would help with his life as an adult, as a teacher actually now, tremendously, if he could get the label. And this is all just so mysterious and tricky. So I was thinking like our body, or maybe our mind as well, is just so messy, and like sometimes we, or most of the time, we're not completely sure about what is going on. And constantly throughout our lives, we just try to have some kind of account of it, some kind of explanation. Well, a bit back to the hat story. While I was getting, at the time when I got ill, I was writing my thesis, my master's thesis on Ulysses. Maybe that was why I got ill in the first place. So at that time, I had my hat on as a literary critique. So I was digesting through the ponderous texts of Ulysses. I was trying to look through different theories, applying it to the text, analyzing its stylistic variations, which is all very fun. I am in love with Ulysses, I am. But it was quite intriguing, and I had my hat firmly on as a literary critique at that time. So I did fine with my thesis, and fast forward, I graduated and I went back to China. And there was still a time when I was feeling not quite well. I still had the same symptoms. So my mom took me to a Chinese medical clinic. So where I was told, like, I did have something, and I was really happy. It's like, I finally had some kind of account. I didn't quite believe the account, but it was something, it was some kind of vocabulary I was given. So the doctor said I had some qi deficiency, too much dampness and coldness in my body, and I was given some herbs, which I cooked, had to cook 2 hours a day, and the juice from it is quite bitter. I took it, and I felt better. So I wasn't sure whether it was the account I got, the medicine I got, or the effort I went through to do something about my body. Any of those, but I did feel better, and I feel like I was managed to get something from it. And also, at that point, the doctor said, like, I was sub-healthy. And I started to think about this term. So I kind of grew up with this term without thinking too much about it. It was everywhere in the public discourse in China, because in China we have 2 medical systems, both in operation. We had the Western system and the Chinese medical system. And the hallmark of what Chinese medicine system is about preventing disease from happening. So once the terms of health was proposed in 1990s, it got quite popular in the Chinese like public discourse. It's everywhere in the newspaper. But actually it was kind of framed as a Western term. So I was really surprised when I came here and realized people don't have the term here. And I learned a new word, hypochondria. Right. So I thought like the construction of the concepts of body is really interesting and intriguing, and unconsciously I am experiencing my body exactly under the influence of those conceptual constructions. And because I still had my hat on as a literary critique, I wrote up my proposal and I started my PhD here in Sheffield, working on the concept of suboptimal health in modern Chinese literature. Well, like, I guess I need to explain the concept a bit more. So it's like, how many of you feel you are 100% healthy? Here, raise your hand. Okay, I was not too surprised. So it's kind of like the concept of health is a bit of like an ideal. Like we put in so much things in the idea of health, but most of the time, as we navigate through life, I guess like we're not quite sure whether we are in the completely happy and glorious end of health. We are like in the middle area navigating, or at least I feel like that. And the concept of suboptimal health, as it is constructed in the public discourse, like refers to a lot of different symptoms. Loss of hair, difficulty of sleeping, redness in tongue. There were like a long list of symptoms, like really tricky and really weird, but it's like just daily concerns people might have, and it just like, it was captured in the concept. And I thought I will try to look for it in modern Chinese literature. Another thing that happened was, as soon as I started my PhD, luckily for me, I got a job at a Chinese medical clinic here in Sheffield. So there I got to encounter many visitors there and who share similar stories as me. And also quite interesting, like before I started my job, I thought I will, mainly be seeing Chinese people there, who are just too familiar with our own medical system, but not really. It's people from all over the world who have similar concerns maybe, and who was trying to look for new vocabulary or accounts of their body, and Chinese medicine become one of the results. So that was two things. I was trying to look for my literature, which I did not manage to find. It so happens that the concept of suboptimal health is quite new. It's only emerged in 1990s, and it was actually accompanied by some kind of commercial program, not surprising, so some kind of disease mongering. So it was proposed in China, but particularly because of the Chinese medical system, it was actually received quite well. And even though the health tonic advertised at the time did not receive much commercial success, the concept survived, and it survived into the public discourse. But I was looking at literature way before that, and I was looking at literature at the beginning of the 20th century. It was more like a time when the nation is depicting disease, like serious disease, and use it as a symbol of the decadence of the nation, and desperately looking for medicine as a modern medicine, science as a way of rescuing the nation. So I didn't find anything about my concept, and I was really desperate. How am I gonna continue my PhD without literature? So my hat as a literary critique was trembling, is just gonna fall off. And at that time, I started to think about the kind of stories I hear at the clinic. It's like the Chinese doctor, she carries the concepts, like she carries different theories, and some of them are quite complicated. But each of us visitors, like me too, because sometimes I also talk to the doctor about my concerns, I just take a piece of it. I mean, I don't understand the Chinese medical theory. It's really confusing, but like some part of it, it makes sense to me. And also I take some part from the Western medicine as well. And I kind of like try to construct them into my own storytelling. And also, I'm aware that I'm so influenced by the concept of suboptimal health. You know, I started a PhD on it. So because like the concept was proposed as I was growing up, like it was there in the knowledge construction of my time, whereas it was not there in my parents' generation maybe. So it's like I was kind of like influenced, or like I was constructed by some theory from above, but at the same time I'm also actively reinventing stories about my body, taking initiative, I guess, and like all the people who come to the clinic as well. So I was thinking, like, you know, the body is so mysterious. The stories, the tales we tell about our body is as mysterious as well. And sometimes when the body is visible to us, you know, when we are worried about it, the kind of content is as ponderous as Ulysses maybe, and there's so much to write about it. So I thought I would write about that instead. And I talked to my supervisor, and we agreed that I can, you know, conduct ethnography in the clinic instead, or like do interviews with people, listen to stories from people, and that can actually constitute my PhD. So it's a bit also new to me because I'm used to analyzing text. Now I need to deal with people. It's not easy to deal with people as a researcher. There are a lot of things to deal with, to worry about, because people have their own worries, needs, stories, and privacies and everything. And so at the moment, I'm like going through, I'm preparing for my ethical approval, and as soon as I got it, I will start interviewing people and collecting stories and analyzing them. But back to the question I asked in the beginning, am I ill? And where's my hat? So it's like some days I believe in the theory I was given and I took Chinese medicine religiously. And some days I think it's just anxiety and I try to comfort myself about my own anxiety. And like I also realized maybe like it could be my thyroid. So like I'm never sure. Like I don't have a concrete account. I'm just trying to find out about it. And I guess that's all right. I don't need to know for sure about it. And it's messy as it is, and it's fine. About my hats. So I am a quasi-philosopher, in the process of becoming a social scientist, ethnographer, and I'm still a patient. I still like see the doctor, and I have a 4-year-old and 7-year-old cats. So I'm a cat owner. And also, as I'm working in the clinic, sometimes the visitors ask me, are you a student? I say yes. And they ask like, are you learning to be a doctor? I say yes, but not that kind of doctor. I want that hat as well eventually at some point. Thank you.